Our lesson today is called Map a Story. Let's look at a few key standards. So, the previous standard that we're going to be building on from first grade is to compare and contrast the adventures and experiences of characters in stories. The new standard we're going to be looking at is use information gained from illustrations and words in a print or digital text to demonstrate understanding of its characters, setting, or plot. We're going to be focusing on characters' aspects for this unit. So let's look at a quick overview of our lesson. So our objective is the students will describe how characters respond to challenges in their choice of two stories using a story map and discussing with peers. The main goal for this lesson is to help you understand how you and others react to obstacles and challenges by showing you the responses of short story characters. This lesson will help you better understand the characters by creating story maps and interacting with peers. Today, we will be reading short stories as a class and as small groups. You're going to use a story map to discuss the characters in each story, then pick one to create your own story map. After today's lesson, you'll be able to describe how story characters respond to obstacles in their lives. What you learn in this lesson will help you in future lessons when we read informational texts like biographies, and it will help you to think about your own life and how you respond to challenges. So now we're going to have a partner discussion. I want you to turn to a partner and tell them what we're going to learn about today by rephrasing what I just said. Rephrasing means to use your own words. We're going to be focusing on short stories today. So what are some short stories that you have read? Before we get into the lesson, let's watch a quick video about characters' responses to events in a story.
Hey everyone, it's time for Talking Scout Ship 7, the #1 fan cast on the internet for all things Scout Ship 7, the most awesomest space exploration drama ever made. Lucy, zoom out now. I'm Captain Rodney, president of the new Chicago Scout Ship 7 fan club, and with me is Ensign Benson.
Greetings.
And of course, we have Benson's little sister Lucy working the camera.
Hey.
Today, we continue our epic breakdown of the latest and greatest Scout Ship 7 movie, Scout Ship 7-3, The Search for Great Leader's Pony. Benson, what do you think the major event in this movie is?
Well, it is definitely when Great Leader's pony gets stolen, and Great Leader orders Scout Ship 7 to find him.
That definitely gets the movie rolling. Let's take a look.
Incoming message from Great Leader. Incoming message from Great Leader.
On screen.
Tronic, my pony is gone. You have to find him.
Sir, your pony? But we're in deep space, sir.
I know. The Myomorphs took him. You have to search their quadrant.
But sir, we're not allowed in their quadrant. Doing so would be considered an act of war.
Stealing my pony was an act of war, Tronic. Now do as I order.
How do you know the Myomorphs took him, sir? It makes no sense. Have you looked everywhere for him?
Just find him, Tronic. Great Leader out.
Wow! Great Leader must be losing his mind when he sends Scout Ship 7 into the Myomorph quadrant.
He must really love his pony, and he must not be thinking clearly. And what about Tronoc's response?
Oh, I know. At first he's all like, "Look, boss, I'm kind of busy right now."
Yeah, but then he jumps right into, "That's a really bad idea, boss."
Right. But he still manages to be practical and tries to avoid going into enemy territory.
Whew. I'd say Tronoc responds to that major event way cooler than Great Leader does.
Okay, so recap. What happens in the story?
Great Leader's pony is stolen.
Yep. And what do the characters do because of what happens?
Well, Great Leader totally freaks out, and Tronoc is quite realistic.
You nailed it, Benson. We'll talk more about what Tronoc was thinking and feeling in our next fan cast when Benson and I have a special guest on. Sheila Sedmak, the president of the new Chicago Myomorph fan club, will join us to talk all things Scout Ship 7.
Really? Sheila from school? She's going to be on the show?
Check the site on Tuesday for our next episode. Until then, I'm Captain Rodney.
And I am Ensign Benson.
Is that it?
Okay, this is our story map. A story map is a chart that helps us to organize the parts of a story. So a story map is a chart that helps us organize the parts of a story. Let's look at some other words you guys might not know. Who can tell me what prevent means? Prevent means to stop something from happening. So prevent means to stop something from happening. Can someone use prevent in a sentence so we can better understand what it means? How about main character? What is the main character in a story? The main character is the most important person in the story. So main character, the most important person in a story. Okay, before we go on to paired practice, I'm going to have you show you understand by using your fingers. So you're going to put up a 1 for I don't understand, a 2 meaning you somewhat understand, and a 3 meaning I understand completely and can show that understanding. Okay, so for paired and small group activity, we're going to read our first short story, which is The Ugly Duckling. Then we're going to complete our story map. The story map asks us specific questions that will help us to organize our thoughts and the story's events. So let's look at The Ugly Duckling. The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. It was a beautiful spring morning on a small farm near the woods. In a cool, shaded corner, a duck built a warm nest to sit on her 4 precious eggs. Strangely, one of the eggs was much larger than the rest. To her excitement, the egg started to rumble and crack. 1, 2, 3 eggs popped open, and 3 little ducklings poked their heads into the world. At the same time, the biggest egg began to crack as well. To the mother's surprise, a big gray duckling stumbled out of the egg. Although he was different and not as cute as the other ducklings, she loved him nonetheless. The next day, the duck introduced her family to the other animals on the farm. Seeing the strange gray duckling, the pig, mallard, and mouse all burst out laughing. The poor duckling bowed his head in shame. He felt like he didn't belong. That night, as his family slept near the barn, the gray duckling decided to leave to find people that liked him for who he was. Before long, he ran into a kind old woman, her rooster, and her cat. She invited him into her home, and they treated him like family. Over time, the little gray duckling began to grow. Although he was happy, he always felt something was missing. One day, as he stared out on the pond, he saw a family of beautiful swans waiting in the cool breeze. He wanted to go swimming with them. As he approached the pond, he saw his reflection for the first time. The ugly duckling had grown into a beautiful swan. From below, the cat and rooster happily watched their friend fly high in the sky. Finally, the little gray duckling had found himself. Okay, Now I'm going to ask you to turn to your desk partner and discuss how you might fill in the story map. What evidence from the story points you to the answer for each blank? If you finish early, you can use your pencil or highlighter to underline evidence within the story that will help you when we actually write down our responses. Now that you have discussed the short story, let's start filling in our story map. So, what is the title of the story? The Ugly Duckling. So, we're going to write that next to title. The Ugly Duckling. And who is the author of the story? Hans Christian Andersen. And who is the main character? The Ugly Duckling. Okay, with your table group, I want you to continue to fill in the blanks using your text evidence. Raise your hand if you need assistance. Now, I want you to switch your papers with a classmate to check each other's work. You're going to use your pencil to write suggestions for better responses on the back of your friend's paper. Many of these questions that are asked on the story map are open questions, meaning that they can have more than one different answer. So I'm going to show you some possible answers, and I want you to go ahead and check each other's work. Okay, so the title should be The Ugly Duckling. The author is Hans Christian Andersen. The main character is the ugly duckling, and he wanted to be accepted. But everyone thought that he was ugly, which is what happened that prevented him from getting what he wanted. So he tried to find a different family. Then he was accepted and he grew up and became a beautiful swan. Okay, now I want you to return the papers that you have to their original owner and put your own paper in your take-home folder. Once again, I want you to display a 1 finger, meaning that you don't understand, a 2 meaning you kind of understand, or a 3 meaning that you understand completely and can show your work. Now we're going to read another story, The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs who were sent out by their mother to make their place in the world. As they reached the edge of the forest, they decided it would be a good place to build their homes. Peter was the oldest and the laziest of the 3. He chose to build his house quickly out of straw so he could sleep for the rest of the day. Joe was the second oldest and just a bit less lazy than Peter. He decided a straw house would not be warm enough, but he did not want to work that hard on building a house either. Joe decided to build his home out of wood and spent the rest of the day watching TV. Mark was the youngest and the hardest working of the bunch. He remembered what his mother had told him about succeeding by working hard and decided to take his time to build a sturdy house of brick. Although it was hard work, after 2 days he had built a nice brick home. His brothers laughed at him for wasting precious time that could have been spent napping or watching TV. Later that week, a big bad wolf came knocking on Peter's straw hut. "Let me in, little pig," cried the wolf. "Not by the hair on my chinny chin chin," mocked Peter. The wolf growled, "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down." Since the house was built out of straw, it quickly blew apart. Peter dashed down to Joe's home and locked the door behind him. "Let me in, little pigs," yelled the wolf. "Not by the hair on our chinny chin chin," said the brothers. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down," the wolf replied. Again the weak home of sticks blew apart, and the brothers ran to Mark's sturdy house to hide. The wolf once again demanded to be let in, but this time a confident Mark said, Go away, wolf. You could never blow my house down. The wolf huffed and puffed like he never had before and tried to blow the brick house down. After failing many times, the poor wolf sulked back into the forest. The two older brothers thanked Mark for saving the day and promised to be a little less lazy next time. Okay, now I'm going to have you come up and write responses in the blanks one at a time. So who's the title? What is the title of this story? The Three Little Pigs. And who wrote the story? It doesn't say, so we're going to put NA, meaning not applicable. Who is the main character of the story? It may appear to be the little pigs, but it's actually the wolf, because he was actually trying to get something, and something else prevented him from getting what he wanted. So the wolf is the main character. And what did he want? To get the three little pigs. But what happened that prevented him from getting what he wanted? They were hiding. So what did he try to do? He tried to blow their houses down. So he tried to huff and puff. And what happened as a result? He failed because the brick was strong. Okay. Once again, I want you to provide a 1, 2, or 3 finger signal for understanding. Okay, for individual practice, each of you are going to choose between the gingerbread man or the tale of Peter Rabbit. What I want you to do is to read your story of choice, so either gingerbread man or tale of Peter Rabbit, and you're going to use a story map to organize your observations of evidence in the text that will answer the questions on the story map. If you finish early, you can read another short story on the American Literature website under Short Stories for Children using an iPad or computer from the Tech Center.